My husband got physical with me in an argument in front of our daughter. 6month. Can our marriage be salvaged? My husband and I are in the process of downsizing to live off of his income only so I can be a stay-at-home mom to our 6-month-old daughter. We've moved out of our house an hour and a half away to a cheaper living arrangement, also closer to my parents. I've been commuting 3 hours a day to my job for the last 2 weeks while waiting for our house to close, 3 days from today. He works from home and my mom watches our daughter during the day at our house. We had previously agreed that I would put my notice in at my job once the due diligence period was over and we would be guaranteed the earnest money from the buyers should they back out from closing. Last night the topic came up again as I was supposed to give my notice today. My husband changed his mind and said that he wants me to wait until we actually close on the house before giving my notice, so giving my notice on Friday rather than Monday. I told him we had already agreed on when I would give my notice and I'm exhausted from the commute. I can't do it anymore, and I desperately want to be home with our daughter as I only get to see her for a couple hours at the end of each day before I put her to bed. The argument got very heated and we were both very agitated with each other. I said I don't want to talk about this anymore, just forget it, to which he responded with, "You don't get to do that. You need my permission before you can do any of this." I rolled my eyes and chuckled, then took our daughter from him to get her ready for bed. I went into the bathroom with her to give her Tylenol before bed, she's teething, and he followed us in there. He kept barking at me saying I was going to F us financially by making a stupid/selfish decision if I put my notice in today. I just kept going waiting for him to drop it. At that point, he punched the wall outside of the bathroom and screamed in my face with a litany of expletives, all while I'm holding our 6-month-old in my arms. I didn't want him to know how much he'd scared me, so I laughed and told him to get away from me. He then grabbed me by the back of the neck and screamed in my face again, enough to where spit flew off his mouth into my face. Again, our 6-month-old daughter is about 4 inches from my face while I'm holding her. I then said, "What the hell is wrong with you?" and told him to get out of my way as he had us cornered in the bathroom. He said, "What are you going to do about it, B?" and shoved me further into the bathroom after I pushed myself into him to try and get past him. I continued to tell him to move and he continued to say, "What are you going to do about it?" Finally I told him to move so I could put the baby to bed and he eventually moved aside and walked away while muttering some other nasty things under his breath. I want to say that I know I am not remotely innocent in heated arguments we have. When I feel that he's being condescending towards me, my defense mechanism has always been rolling my eyes, letting out a chuckle, or responding with, "Okay, you're right," just to end the conversation. I know it's disrespectful and it pisses him off and it's not why I do it in the moment, but I don't know what else to do at that point. We've both been incredibly stressed these last couple of weeks with the move and we've had a number of nasty arguments, but nothing like this. We've never had an argument escalate to what it did last night. He is always the one to cross the line in an argument though. We'll both be angry with each other over whatever, raising our voices a bit and certainly having some attitude. But it'll get to a point where he'll feel completely disrespected and resort to name-calling and/or shouting. When we've cooled down, I get an apology, but always with a "you can do or say whatever you want," but as soon as I take it to that level, you get to pretend you did nothing wrong. I've always told him that's not the case, but when he's the one that crosses the line from a normal argument where we're both being jerks to something just nasty and hateful, he's pretty much shot himself in the foot as far as I'm concerned. The part that makes me the angriest is that our daughter was in the middle of all of this. I've been in past relationships where I've been screamed at, shoved, manhandled, etc. I'm not saying it's okay, but it's not new to me. But my husband has never been one to put his hands on me. After I put our daughter to bed, I showered and got into bed. He said, "Are we going to talk about what happened?" And I said, "What would you like to talk about?" because I genuinely had nothing to say to him on the matter. He said, "Well, obviously I was in the wrong for grabbing you by the neck and I'm sorry," and I said, "Okay." He said, "I just want things to go back to normal," and I said, "Me too." He said, "Can I give you a hug?" I said, "I guess," and he said, "I won't hug you if you don't want me to." So we sat in bed for a minute and he said, "I'd really like to talk this out," and I said, "I don't think I'm ready to do that yet." He said, "When will you be ready to?" And I said, "Well, I'll be gone all day tomorrow for work, so I guess whenever I get home," and he said, "Okay." He told me he loved me and I said it back and we went to sleep. This morning when I left for work, I said "love you all" to my mom and him, but no interaction more than that. I have every intention of forgiving him if I get home tonight and he's practically groveling. But if he tries to make any sort of excuse for this, i.e., I was speaking to him very disrespectfully, I don't think it will go well. In my head, I've planned on telling him that this was his free one. If anything remotely close to this happens again, both myself and our daughter will be gone. I want to treat this as an isolated incident. We've been married for almost 4 years and been together since we were 15 except for 2 years from the end of high school/early college. I love my husband and I want to stay with him, but I will not allow my daughter to live in this kind of household. Everyone always says people never change, it'll only escalate, etc. I just have a hard time believing that with him. Sorry for the novel, but I felt like I needed to give as much details/background as possible to really paint a picture of where we're at. Comment. She is determined to get that living arrangement so she can turn around and quit to be a stay-at-home mother. The hell? The asshole husband has already showed his whole hand and OP needs to thank her lucky stars she knows the deck he's playing with. A stay-at-home mom at any cost is crazy to me, especially when her husband is low-key/crazy and trying in his psychotic way to tell her they can't afford to live on one income. EDA, kept assumptions more neutral. I think he needs anger management ASAP. The next time he may have a knife or something like a bat in his hand. He's going to apologize after he stabs, chokes, or beats the shit out of you. You and your daughter are not safe. You should keep your job and start stashing money away to escape. Don't wait till something worse happens as he's not safe. This whole arrangement is BS and makes zero sense. NYTF a explosive argument of her giving her notice on a Friday versus a Monday. It's also sad that she's blaming herself for the way she responded. The dude was shoving her around and cornered her in a bathroom with her baby in his arms. Why isn't anybody talking about this but they're talking about her job? Can we please stop saying that people who stay in abusive relationships are crazy and stupid? That's so fucked up. She's blaming herself for his behavior, so he's obviously emotionally manipulating her on top of the physical abuse. There are a million reasons people don't/can't leave right away. Do some research if you don't understand. This needs to be up higher. She can't see it escalating, but she needs to take a step back and look at this with a wider lens. You have a baby with him now. You've moved. You're quitting your job. This is all escalating. He now has you isolated and dependent on him. My God, this is alarming. She is not taking this as seriously as she needs to. I agree. There is no excuse for physical violence. OP, please reconsider resigning. He has escalated to physical violence. There is no turning back. You need to report him to the police. Violent people don't de-escalate after getting violent, they escalate instead. He grabbed you by your neck. That's an extreme escalation, especially with your baby in your hand. Don't ignore the massive red flag. You need to get away from this man, not stay with him. Story 2. I broke my marriage because I refused to go to my husband's family Christmas party. My husband and I have been together for about 7 years now and married for 3 of them. We have our ups and downs, but we are able to work through our issues together, but this one doesn't feel the same. It all started when I told my husband that I wasn't joining his family for their Christmas celebration this year. For some context, his mother and I have never really gotten along. We'll be cordial one day and then the next she'll completely ignore me, pretend that I'm not there and just be really passive-aggressive. I've also noticed strange behavior with his father and a few of his other siblings. I always felt their behavior towards me was because I'm Mexican and therefore not worthy of my husband. This theory solidified when Mill was obnoxiously rude towards my grandmother at my wedding, but that's a whole other story. I've told my husband in the past how uncomfortable they've made me feel and how I hated going over there for that reason. At first, he would brush it off and say it was a misunderstanding or that he didn't notice, so therefore it probably wasn't anything, but in these last few years, he's begun to see what I see and understand where I have been coming from. Which sucks because he should have been supported from the beginning, but whatever. He's talked to his mother once about her behavior and she brushed it off and was able to convince him that she didn't even notice she was doing it. So I kept going to their celebrations and events even though I felt so uncomfortable because I know how much it meant to him. And to be fair, my relationship with his siblings has gotten a lot better, but nothing much has changed with his mother. Fast forward to last night, I told him that I'm done playing nice and I refused to put myself in a situation where I felt unsafe and miserable. He said that's fine and nothing else. It's what I expected, but I guess I just wanted more validation from him or more reassurance that I was doing the right thing. So I pushed him into telling me more of what's on his mind. He just said that he was anxious about going now because he would have to figure out what to say to his family when they inevitably asked him why I wasn't there. I don't really remember where the conversation went from there because it all happened at 2 in the morning, but he eventually said that he'd have to tell them the truth whether he liked to or not. This broke me. It just proved that he'd rather I suck it up and take the abuse than have to support me in my drama. And yes, he did call this whole situation drama a few times. I started to spiral and question everything. Did he even care how I felt? Does he even love me? I eventually told him that I feel no support or reassurance from him and that his line of thinking was so selfish. What does it matter what his siblings or his parents say when they've treated me so poorly? Why would he want a relationship with his mother when he's seen with his own eyes how she treats me? All his thoughts are about how this will affect his relationships and how he is going to get through that weekend. Like, what about me? I've literally been putting myself through hell to make him more comfortable and he doesn't give a shit. He said he was showing his support by accepting my decision and not fighting me on it. He doesn't want to force me to go, so he's respecting it and focusing his attention on how to field his family for us. And he knows he's being selfish because he doesn't want to drop part of his support system and he still loves them very much. In the end, I told him that this wasn't an issue with his mother or his family and that this was a fundamental issue in our relationship. I feel no support or reassurance because he's shown nothing to stop this behavior in the past and he believes I don't trust him to take action, which I mean, he's not wrong. He still wants a relationship with his parents, but I don't know if I can be with someone who doesn't have my back 1000%. When we finally went to bed around 4:30 in the morning, he refused to touch me and this morning he avoided me until he had to head out for work. I feel like we're sinking and I don't know how to save us. Comment. Your husband needs to have a blunt conversation with his mother. There's absolutely no reason on earth you should have to suck it up to keep the peace. Fuck the peace. Your husband needs to grow a fucking spine. Why would her husband have a blunt conversation with his mother about her behavior when he's dismissing his wife's valid concerns? He's choosing his family over the woman he married. What good will a talk do? Not saying your husband is in the right, he's not, nor that he shouldn't pick you/stand up for you. I'm just saying that at 2 a.m. you started a conversation saying that you weren't going to Christmas that escalated into if you don't go no contact you don't choose me. Again, I'm not saying what you did was wrong or your boundaries are wrong. I am saying that you have been processing this and reached a conclusion and he hasn't been processing with you. He's at the end of your process and really wasn't seeing the whole picture. Again, not your fault, he's got blinders on. Marriage counseling is needed. He needs to come to terms with the hatred and mistreatment his family has shown his wife and figure out how to disengage while standing up for you. This can take some professional help to figure out, not one evening. Marriage is hard, but having racist in-laws makes it nearly impossible. Unless you really think your husband doesn't love you, respect you, or consider you, give him time to get into counseling and figure this out with you. I think you should go to therapy. Ideally with someone who is Latino who can bring racial and cultural relevance to the discussion. You've said they're prejudiced and you say something concrete happened but have failed to specify it, so all anyone can do is assume you're correct. Even if we assume they are horrible racists, I read your whole thing and I'm like, okay, he agreed you shouldn't go. But you're still mad, so the question is, what is your actual expectation of him here? What is it, specifically, that you want him to do to prove he supports you? If you can't answer that, I don't know how you can expect him to know. He said okay, don't go. You pushed it more and he said he was anxious about having to explain to his family why you aren't coming. That's a totally reasonable and normal thing to feel in this situation. But you're angry, so what is it you want from him? You need to go to therapy either alone or together to work this out. Perhaps they're horrible racists. You said you won't see them. He said okay. And that's not enough. So you need to figure out what you really want and whether that's fair and reasonable.